Hi, welcome to Character Animation Lecture Series. I'm Cameron Hood, currently working as a feature animator. Today's lecture will be doing walk cycles and understanding how to do a walk cycle as a character animator. Throughout my career, as I was learning, I've come to appreciate just how important it is to understand how to do a perfect walk cycle. Working through your extremes, keys, working your curves in and out of those keys, so we're showing some nice dynamic movement and weight, but we're also hiding some of those keys so there's no pops. Working basically throughout this cycle so we can grab any point and put the character anywhere we need to, walk the character off screen, put some personality into the walk cycle, work on overlap, successive breaking of joints, working up and down the spine chain, putting the small details on the feet and the legs through the pelvis. So let's have some fun with it, and hopefully you'll take some of these techniques I'm sharing with you and use them throughout this whole series. So let's get started.
Okay, so let's get started with bipedal 1 in this series of bipedal pieces of animation. Today we're going to be starting with how to build and construct balance in a walk cycle and do a walk cycle, moving along throughout a scene, perfect spacing, learning about stride positions, home positions. How do we get a character like this to have successive breaking of joints, overlap, and consistency in weight? So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off with a 33 frame walk cycle. Most walk cycles are relatively in march time, which is about 24 frames a second. Well, 24 frames, which is 1 second. But we're going to do it slightly slower because it'll lend itself later on, if we want to add some personality, we can tweak some things to this walk cycle, do things like a double bounce or make him sad or whatever the case. It's sort of a nice amount of time to get some ideas across. So here we are with the FK No Man. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by talking about what are the main ingredients to build a perfect walk cycle. There's different ways to approach a walk cycle, and certainly the way that I was taught was not to just go into the hip node and start with the up and down and sort of layer from there. And the reason why I don't do that is because it's hard for me to really know how much up and down there is until I hit the major home position, which is the stride position. These are my kind of crude drawings I've done here. But basically what we're looking at is the main positions in a walk is this first stride key, the down position, the mid stride, and the up position. These are sort of the 4 major keys in a walk cycle, or 4 key positions. And the way that I look at it is that the stride and the mid stride, these are supposed to represent the same height. And that's sort of our homing position. We're going to use this as a base. And we're going to make sure we try to hit a straight leg as much as possible so we can really show that change in the break. And we can show a nice change when the leg kind of snaps off the ground to sort of add some texture to really make it feel like there's some weight on this particular character. This would be the classic mid-stride sort of position. This is the high position. So basically what we're going to be getting is something that feels a little bit like this. And we're going to flatten off, move up, smooth, flat curve, and then start to go down again, which eventually will be the other low position. This one too will be repeated somewhere over here. But anyway, you get the idea. And this is the basic rhythm we're going to be looking for. And because it's a 30 frame walk cycle, I encourage you to do these little sketches for yourself. This would be 1 and 33. The other half position will be 17. So we'll be copying and pasting that. This will be frame 9. Also, this will be frame 25. This will be frame 5. And this will be frame 21. 117 being the same, so I'm just going to... But this will be obviously, say, left foot forward, left foot, left foot, and this would be right foot. But this is the kind of quick sketch you can do. This would be frame 13 and 29. and obviously hooking into frame 1 or 33. So anyway, there's that. Take the time to sort of study it. Straight leg position, low position, mid stride, sort of should equal half sort of our home position. And this is our high. To me, this position here, calling it the home position, allows me to know what the up and down will be. Because I'm actually basing it off of this particular position, that's sort of my zeroed out position. Although it won't technically be zero in the translation of up and down in Y, it will be what I'm going to use as my home position of 0 to say, okay, anything higher than this position is obviously going towards the higher extreme, which is over here. Anything lower is going towards my low extreme. So that's how we're going to approach the walk cycle today. Moving right along to our No Man, basically what I have to adjust are 3 major controls. I'm not going to worry about overlap or any of that sort of thing right away. I'm basically going to get right down to business and start posing this character out. I'm going to go to side view. And basically, I'm going to start putting the feet, set my preferences here to linear. Save. What I'm going to do is really try to go for, again, that first sort of home position that I'm looking for. And I'm going to key it in Z. And I'm going to key it in rotate X. These are the 2 keys I put on before. We're going to basically be layering this particular assignment. So out of the gate, I'm going to copy and paste right away, even though this is a rough key. I haven't totally committed to it yet. I'm going to be mindful that I know that everything that I do with these legs is going to be mirrored. I'm going to rough out this position. You'll notice also I'm using these side view squares sort of as an easy mark. I find that they're pretty great for using just as a guide for where the ankle will hit and where the toe, and I'm trying to rough it out approximately at the line. So let's go to our graph editor really quick. Let's set this to side view. This will be a layout we can work with. And I'm going to select this foot. I'm going to grab that line that I sort of roughed in with the move tool. I'm just going to slightly adjust it so it gets there. Grab the other one here. You notice I'm not using the up and down in Y on the legs. And I generally don't want to do that once I've hit the contact position. Once the foot is on the floor, I sort of look at it as a game over. I don't want to start pushing things up and down. Now certainly once the leg comes off the ground through here, it's not a problem to have it go up in Y. But for now, when the leg is on the ground, all the weight is on that leg, so I'm not going to start translating it down even further. I'm just going to sort of leave it on this basically floor path, or the line of the floor. So there's my first sort of major key. I'm noticing I don't have any contact position with the toe here, so I want to very quickly start addressing this home position to sort of get a real feel for how this character is going to move. And you'll notice what's happening is I've started to lose that really sweet straight leg that we have. So what I have to really quickly do, and what I'll be doing during this whole lecture, is I'll constantly be setting something called the plumb line and adjusting things in Y. Really trying to get a comfortable stance for this character. Really trying to keep a relatively straight leg. As you can see now, I started roughing in. This could be quite a nice home position. Although the foot isn't totally off the ground, we're basically working with some of the limitations of this particular model. So we're trying to get something that feels comfortable, looks pretty good, and relatively comes across as a straight leg. And as we start putting in rotations and all that sort of thing, the up and down, all these positions are going to roughly change slightly. So the curves are going to dictate what sort of spacing is really going to be put through here. But let's just kind of move along and just say, okay, we're pretty happy with this position. So I'm going to copy and paste this key, set my other key, home position. And also, if you remember, I was just mentioning that the mid stride to me is the other home position. So I'm going to set the mid stride here also, which will be frame 9 and 25 as my other mid stride. You'll notice it's here, home, home. I'll put an H beside just so you understand for those who are doing these little sketches. This is sort of our home position. So paste this, paste this. So, where are we going with this? Well, basically, I want to look at the opposite legs for now, start roughing those in. I can select this leg, I can copy it, and now I can select the other leg, and because I know the other stride will be here, I can now paste this leg so they're both the same. Also, what I can do here, just to make sure, go into perspective mode, I don't want to not select the appropriate leg. I now want to have this leg have what this guy had here. Oh, let's make sure. Oh, I didn't set a key on the rotate, so let's make sure that's zeroed out here. Let's make sure this is zeroed out. It's my performance anxiety. So anyway, so I'm going to copy this leg here. Select this leg here. I'm going to very quickly paste it there. And now, checking my curves, because I've got weighted tangency, I want to make sure that for now, there's no weight on those curves whatsoever. And we basically have a conveyor belt. Let's take a look here. Clean everything up. We have a very strange looking back and forth motion. And there's really no up and down yet or any of that sort of thing. And all we've essentially set for ourselves is some sort of guide as to how this character is going to catch himself and propel himself forward. And by doing this, it allows us to kind of get a visual feeling of, does that feel like a casual stride position? Or does that just feel like way too much? And those questions will sort of be answered as we start layering it. You might want to tone some things down. But for now, it's not too bad. And for the sake of just kind of carrying on with this and constantly adjusting as we go, let's check our graph editor. Make sure this leg here is contacted with the ground. Go to side view. I'm going to move the hip up. So there we go. Constantly adjusting this sort of home key position. Copy. Just to make sure it's the same. Paste. Constantly adjusting this home position as I work. Although I try to work rough and just sort of feel things out, I don't want to get sort of carried away and start keying the crap out of this walk and not really have a strong, solid home position to get back to. So anyway, so here we are now with the little walk cycle, sort of like a pendulum back and forth. Now, some things that we don't want to do, what we certainly want to talk about right now is sort of a common mistake in walk cycles are the numbering conventions, because sometimes people, and this is published in some books, which is very strange to me, they suggest things like, okay, copy and paste to frame 30, or frame 28, or frame 20 or 22. And what happens when you copy and paste onto an even number, that basically means that because it's a cycle, and the first frame and the last frame of every cycle is usually repeating itself, if I was to play it back at 32, well, 1 and 32 will be holding for 2 frames. So by putting it on an odd number, 1 and 33, I can allow my play range to be back at 32. And now what's happening is I have 16 frames on this side till the next contact, and then I have 16 frames on this side to the next contact. And what that allows for is I don't get any limps or any of that sort of thing. So it's very important, certainly what was taught to me and drilled into my head was anytime you're doing a cycle, really try to commit to working on odd numbers. And that way, as you can see here, it allows me to get certain halves that I'm looking for. 1 and 17 are the same. Well, half in time in space also is number 9. In between that is 13, 4 frames later. In between this and 1, 9 and 1 is 5. So then I have a nice odd number here to work with, which I have 3, which is a half, mirroring. And then I have 7, which is great. 11. Sorry, my drawing skills are horrible with the mouse. 15, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. And it's really, really important to lean on that concept throughout this series when we do bipedal works. Things like run cycles is not quite as important because every leg sort of has a key on it. But when we're just doing things that are cycling into themselves, it's more casual, or when we start doing animals, it's really, really important to commit to a smart numbering convention. So let's now talk about one of the other common mistakes. You'll notice that I jumped in right away and worked in Translate Z for the legs, and I immediately wanted to have it linear. So what happens is on a walk cycle is that if I had anything other than linear, once there's a contact position on the ground, and let's say even 2 frames later, I'm just going to whack that foot down. And as the leg starts to come through here, we can see that we're too high in our home position. Now that we've sort of boink, flacked that leg down. So let's select our curve again here. Again, constantly layering, checking this home position. I'm going to slightly adjust it down so it's comfortable for this little guy. And again, just working rough. Going back to this foot, see about setting one key on Y, setting it up. There we go. Copy and paste that really quickly. Don't ever want to change the Y on the leg once I've done a contact. Never want to have it hit through the ground or any of that sort of thing. So now I just have the foot kind of slowly going through the motion. No big deal. But back to the whole Z concept, is what we have to imagine is that once the leg is on the ground, it's like a conveyor belt. So the spacing is very, very even, right up until the point that we leave. So if I was to go to frame 19, and because I'm working linear, frame 9, because I'm working linear, if I was just to drop a key in there, what you'll see is I'm immediately getting a half position. And also at 5, we're talking about the numbering conventions, you'll see it's a half position. And 3, it's a half position. And for those of you who have ever been on a treadmill at the gym or something like that, you'll notice that because it's always working and rotating at a constant, you're a little bit vulnerable to any sort of tripping or any mistakes that your foot might make because the treadmill is moving at a constant rate. If your feet don't immediately catch up, you might trip or stumble or that sort of thing. So you can see that we get this sort of even spacing, just like a conveyor belt. So this foot, once it's hit the ground, is not slowing whatsoever. It's just on that conveyor belt. It's like going, and then when it's off the ground, you can do a lot of different things. Some people like to play around a little bit here and break the handle on this side and flatten it. As it's sort of coming off the ground, it's sort of flattening that position. I kind of think that it's a little bit nicer for texture if you just don't flatten it quite as much coming off the ground. But maybe you slow in just before that kick of the contact position. So the foot sort of goes conk like that. So I'm going to blow away these extra keys because we don't need these. It was just sort of to make a point. But now, going right into my mid-stride position, I'll be able to see, and by not changing my home position, that the foot is pretty much comfortably where it should be in the middle. Go to my perspective view. I'm going to check this other foot here. Make sure it's behaving itself. And right after its contact position, I'd like to set 0 rotation to see how this foot's doing. You can see I'm trying to mirror my own work as I work on each foot. And at some point soon I'm going to avoid copying and pasting each leg because I want to put some little things in there that don't make it perfectly identical so it feels like robotic. I want to put some sort of maybe rotation in Y So it's sort of a comfortable feeling position. And I can set it basically just once if I wanted to, and just basically have a nice kind of comfortable footfall there. I also can, if I wanted to, just slightly at frame 1 move it out. And because I'm working auto key and just setting a key there once, I don't really have to keep copying and pasting, because I've set it basically throughout the scene. It's going to just do what I want it to do. And I'll do the same thing really quickly with the other leg. Let's take a look so I can roughly get in the realm of what's appropriate. So I did 0.221. So let's just clean that up and just do 0.2. So on the other side, what I can do is negative 0.2. Oops. 0.2. Negative 0.2. And because it's on the other side of the main axis of the scene here, the z-axis, I want to now mirror it, so of course it's going to be a negative number. Now, going back to the other side, what I roughed in for the foot, I'm going to try to do the same thing here for my geometry select off. And I'm just going to try to just visually give myself, just to make sure I only grabbed it in Y, a slight rotation of that foot, see if it feels comfortable and looks casual. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. Key select there. Make sure. Key select here. So again, I just sort of eyeballed it. And I know that feet obviously have things like twists in the knees, dragging of the toes. But right now, again, I'm just sort of really concerned about my home base situation, this really comfortable, all-important stride position key. And again, once I put my high position in, I'm eventually probably going to blow away this set key on my hips in Y and sort of have it go smoothly through the curve. So for now, I'm going to work on this mid-stride. Maybe take a look at this other sided leg here. I'm just going to move it up in Y. Key select this here. And also I'm just going to rotate here in X. Let's sort of see how that feels. Oops, make sure this is set here. Don't want to get ahead of myself again. Set this. Down position, so that's keyed. Bump, copy and paste. Again, I gotta keep mirroring what I'm doing. Each side. Paste. Check the graph editor. Make sure everything's okay. Now, I don't want the foot to see the ground, just kind of like the bouncing ball. But I certainly don't mind if it slows up here. Maybe I'm going to have it pop off the ground. I have to feel this out a little bit to sort of see. Maybe I'll slow it off the ground. But regardless, you can sort of play around with these in-betweens as you go. Just kind of based on what you feel feels right. So here's our rotate X position. We have an extra key right here, which I am going to slow into. This is our contact position key. Make sure that foot is on the ground. Donk. Now basically what I should have make this even with frame 1 and 33. So obviously important that I set the ground plane. I don't have it slowing off here. I just sort of have it popping off the ground for now. But what I do have is I have the foot rotating off the ground here, and you can see that I've flattened into this rotation so it sort of smoothly hits its top of its rotation here on the drag and then starts to go into the kick. Now there's a couple things I can obviously do in the graph editor. I can delay that kick if I wanted to kind of make it feel more snappy and break the handle. So it'll be favor, favor, boom, and kick it out. You can sort of play with that, whatever you'd like to do. I kind of think you should just sort of make it smooth. And just don't really think too much about it, unless you really want to put certain textures in this animation. Again, this is sort of a robot, so you don't have to make it exactly as smooth as a human being. It might be kind of fun if it's a little bit more clunky. With relatively good spacing, no real mistakes. I don't mean clunk like that, but I mean clunk in the fact that you're really kind of putting in some interesting curves and some breakdown positions that really allow for some sort of dynamic texture, and it just doesn't feel like a strange, lifeless creation. It's nice to put some degree of attitude in it. So let's start moving along. Now that we've kind of started roughing in the legs, I'll do the same to this side here. Put my rotation in. Just sort of feel it out here. Rotation at 25. Just put it up. Start feeling it out. And basically, keep putting in all the same values per leg as you are working to make sure you're constantly mirroring yourself and mirroring your animation. Copying and pasting, always referring back and forth, making sure those legs are doing the smooth action that you want. And now I'm going to do a play blast to see where we're going with these particular legs. Okay, so this is where we are basically with our first real F-check. The little legs here. And basically we've got our little stompy looking little feet coming down. I notice there's a little bit of a pop in this right leg, so I'm going to go check that curve just to make sure it's mirroring itself. But basically, because we're layering and constantly working rough and always checking our work as we go, we've got the general movement right now of what should be happening in the legs. Also, you can see the limitations of the model. We've got to be careful about some sort of rotation penetrations that are potential in the ankle area here. And also because he's got these sort of big, huge calf muscles, it doesn't allow us to have tons of bend. But because we're going to do sort of a casual, simple walk at the beginning, we don't really want to pop these legs too far up as they're coming here. We just want to keep everything more down. So eventually what we'd like to have is obviously arms swinging back and forth. You get sort of a crappy idea there. But it's always nice to kind of plan ahead, think about how you're going to get there. And what we're going to be really referring to the whole time, again, is this home position. And because we're layering this piece of animation, the head, the neck, the thorax, the lumbars, the pelvis right here, we really want to make sure that we have a proper stride, mid-stride position to work from. So when we go now to do our up and down position, we can have some sort of point of reference from this position here, this position here. So let's start popping in the up and down. And really quickly, I'm going to check the curves here. I'm going to not slow out of that. Take a look at what's going on here. Okay, it looks like there's a bit of a problem. Quickly, I'm going to remedy that. Okay. And I think we're looking good. So let's start popping in the appropriate up and down positions. Checking back to the Adobe Photoshop file here, again, these are the sort of major key positions that we're going to be looking for in a walk cycle to kind of get in and out. And you'll notice the curve I drew here, if it's clear to you, it's basically like this. And from our fundamentals lesson, you'll see it's kind of like the bouncing ball. We have very linear spacing going in, and it's smaller from the extreme spacing, but basically exponentially getting bigger until, bam, it hits. And this is the same sort of idea. If you can follow the head here, it's kind of just like a bouncing ball. The body's just constantly catching itself. So let's go to the hip node now and start feeling out these positions. Copy, paste. I don't know how we lost this paste here. But just to make sure, now we're going to basically start eyeballing a down position. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to work in Y translation. I'm not going to start screwing around with rotations or any of that sort of thing on the main body con. It's really not appropriate in a walk cycle. Everything basically just sort of happens as a catch. It's just sort of constant catching, falling, catching, falling. And also really important, it's a huge mistake in some walk cycles, is some people do weird stuff, like they do like a big front and back, or like a weird side to side. And basically all the texture we get in the feeling of a walk cycle really comes from just the up and down in Y and the constant rotations of the other parts of the body for overlap. So now that I've sort of roughed in a down position here, I can now start doing some sort of a rough, comfortable up position. And just do it just enough so that that toe is just sort of touching the ground. I'm going to copy this. Now I'm going to paste this. Revert back to the graph editor. Take a look at some of these curves and clean them up really quickly. Some of them are a bit of a mess here. We're going to go to View Infinity. We're going to curves pre-cycle and post-infinity cycle. And we're going to try to take a look. How do we hide certain positions? Spline all these out here just to see what we get for free. And what you'll notice here, by holding shift and holding each handle on each side, I can just really quickly now get that sort of pop I'm looking for. But you can see here I've got some pretty weird looking spacing. The value of my home position with the weight of this tangency gives a sort of a strange looking curve for the hang time. So I really want to be mindful that the up and down both times are the same. I don't want to have curves that look different from one another. I don't want to not have the same rhythm in my walk. Because if I don't have the same rhythm, it's going to feel like a bit of a limp, or that it's sort of a lame gait or something like that. So we want to try to really maintain this perfect spacing, mirroring itself, but also allowing for a little bit of texture and a little bit of feeling of organic, well, basically the feeling that this character is alive, essentially. And if I wanted to put a little bit more hang time, obviously I could free weight these tangencies. I'm not going to change their timing, I'm just going to free weight them a little bit here. And now, because I'm working with weighted tangency, I can allow myself to have nicer spacing through here and go in and now just sort of do a quick scrub to get a feel for how I've done with this. And again, I haven't done anything as far as check the plumb line. I've just kind of worked on the up and down. But what I like to do is I now like to go take a look, go in side view, take a look at this plumb line and say, okay, how does that character feel that he's caught himself? And to me, my personal opinion is that he feels right now, in this first rough pass that we've done, I feel like the character's plumb line is a little bit too far backwards. So, let's again revert back to the graph editor. And let's grab this whole thing, this whole curve, because I'm never going to change the plumb line. Also, sometimes what I tell my students to do is I just blow away every single key except for frame 1, and I really just basically fine-tune this plumb line. I'm going to go into my side view here. And I'm going to do it actually on the down position, which is frame number 5. Although I'm grabbing key number 1, because there's no other influence, it will still just directly affect what's happening at frame 5. So let's just sort of slightly bring this guy forward and see how we feel here. And how are we looking here for our contact position, which is not too bad, but let's also raise up the contact ever so slightly here. See how we're doing. Now we're pretty much getting that straight leg that we're looking for. So I've got real hang time on this particular walk cycle, and then he sort of pops down, which will probably give it a nice feeling. Also, if I wanted to, I could keep him lower on the ground. I could pop in another key, or again, I could just free weight the tangency on this side here. Just sort of go for it. This could be a particularly strange feel. But it might feel kind of, this guy's just sort of chugging along. And depending on how your graphics card is, sometimes you can just do a play blast here. But what you'll see here, because it's not playing back at proper time, it's still really hard to get a feel for the up and down. So I do encourage you to do an F check. And this is probably a great time to do an F check. So what we have here is basically our first attempt at up and down, setting plumb line, hopefully having some fun in the process now that we clearly have something that's moving right along through the motion, doing exactly what it needs to be doing at this point. Because we haven't done any overlap, all we've basically done is the major catch in the basic mechanics of the stride and mid-stride up and down position. So let's start doing some more fun stuff with this particular scene. Let's try to see, can we articulate the spine a little bit more to give some variance. We kind of had this broomstick up the rear here feeling very straight. So let's start breaking this guy up a little bit and think about what leads what. How do we do overlap? Now that we're pretty satisfied with our up and down position, how do we now have things pivoting off these positions? How do we have things delay once the down positions hit? How many frames afterwards should we have, say, the thorax go? How do the lumbars move? What sort of curves do we want to put in the lumbar? Do we want to put in different types of curves through the thorax to give a feeling of its different weight? Maybe it's a different piece of metal. Maybe these things are like kind of magnets that are sort of hovering this guy together. Maybe his neck is going to hit a little softer than his head will. So we're going to explore all those things and hopefully have some fun in the process. So, go to my perspective view. Now what you could do is you could do out of the gate a multi-select. Set my select tool here. And I could grab my thorax, lumbar 2, and lumbar 1. And I could go to my down position, and in my frontward X rotation, put in a slight bending forward. Set the same key at my other down position. Also, I'm going to put in flat curve tangency there. Flat. And what you'll see is throughout the whole scene now, I've got this guy just kind of boom, plugging along. Also, what I can do is at my high position, same sort of idea, but in reverse. I can just slightly move him back. Now, I probably don't want to have a ton of rotation here, so I want to be pretty mindful of it. I'm going to shift here, timing. Basically right now I'm feeling things out. I'm playing around with some ideas. And I can copy and paste anything I put at frame 33. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make 29 because that is my up position. I'm going to put drag on this particular walk. So in the up position, he's moving forward. And on the down position, I'm going to have him moving backwards. Just as I'm sort of feeling it out here. And why I want to do that is I want to kind of counteract what's happening in the spine. Copy this. Paste this here. Make sure that's flat. So what I should be getting is this sort of kind of boom, boom, back and forth. This might be a little bit too extreme. So I'm going to copy this. Paste this. This is way too extreme. Notice how I'm always scrubbing and feeling out my ideas as I go. But basically, I don't want it to be completely a zero position. Copy this. And paste this. And as I start putting in my in-betweens, or how the curve essentially will go into these extremes, I can now, because I know that this is where the metal sort of comes forward, I can keep that linear spacing here. I can flatten it there and maybe soften it everywhere else. So we're going to go to View, Infinity, Curves Pre-Cycle, Curves Post-Cycle. And now what I want to do is I can drop a key in at frame 17, doink, and copy this, paste it at frame 1, doink, and do the same thing at frame 33, doink, put that back to flat, and there we go. So now we basically have, we got a home position for free, always checking it at 17, which is my other stride position. And because I had extremes going around 17, I was able just to drop in a key by not changing the curve whatsoever, getting basically a free breakdown or free key, or in between, whatever you want to call it. I'd kind of consider it a key though. Even though it's not an extreme, it's dead in the middle. Because it's so perfectly aligned in the middle between two flat curves, I would say that's a good extreme. It's the extreme of half. So, kind of scrub right through it. So now we kind of got this weird boom, boom, boom. And if I still feel like this is too aggressive going forward or too much going backwards, what I can do, of course like everything else, is I can just change the value slightly of how much this guy actually does lean back. And actually by putting him now to 0 on the way back, it might feel like more like a comfortable walk. And it's only the weight of him, boom, as he goes. And if I still feel like he's too far leaning back, because I've now hit roughly at 0, I don't want to keep screwing around by adjusting it even more up this way. What I will do is always revert back to the Z plumb line on my major hip position. So bang. So now let's talk about what leads what. And what we have here is we have the lumbar 1 hitting at 5 on an extreme. So let's offset that by just 1 frame on everything here. Put that at 2. Now let's drop a key in at 33. Copy this. Paste it at 1. Delete this. And now again, I still have that perfect spacing I'm looking for, but I've just started to delay things. Basically, I've only delayed it by 1 frame, but as we continue to keep layering here, so let's put this at frame 2. This is lumbar 2. I'm just going to offset it by another frame here. So I have it at 6. So I will take this. Oops, don't want to grab that. I am going to singularly select now lumbar 2 so I don't get caught in any sort of problem here. And I'll offset that by 1 more frame. Now we'll take a look at what I have over here. And at frame 16, I've got spacing I can use. If I drop in a key right here, oh, actually, excuse me, 17, of course, home position. At frame 17, drop it, copy it. I can now paste that to frame 1. Copy this. Paste it, frame 33. Erase anything I don't need. Copy this. Paste this. Bam. There we go. Let's check our spacing. Yeah, it looks great. No problems. If we wanted to, we can now blow away the old home position that we've offset. Now we've got some nice spacing going on here. Notice, because this is the lumbar, earlier I talked about maybe doing magnets. If I'm able to flatten this, and I'll go back to lumbar 1 and flatten that, and just make it more of a smooth feeling than say the thorax I'm going to try to hit hard because it's sort of this big metal plate. It might put a nice bit of contrast in our animation here, that these two are just going to slightly, just smoothly going through the motion. You can blow this away. Oops. I'm going to keep that breakdown, actually. Now, let's go to the thorax and take a look at this. So I'm going to offset it by... Thorax is pretty heavy, so I'm going to offset it even by... maybe I could try 3 frames to play around with some timing here. Here we go. Oops, I just killed my timeline. Performance anxiety. Go to UI elements. Go to time slider. One of my most important tools. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, now here at 17, drop in a key. Home position I like. Paste it. Copy it. Paste it. Frame 1. Frame 33. I can paste it. Put everything to 32. Do a quick play blast. See what our rough ideas sort of feel like right now. Could feel a little bit wacky, but I think we're relatively on the road to success here. So here we go. Got a little bit of texture happening. He seems a little bit drunk or something like that because his head's just sort of bopping back and forth. So what we're going to now start talking about is how do we counter animate. But what we're getting is, it's kind of hard to see here close, but let's go close in. Because we've sort of just flattened these things in the middle, which I kind of consider to be almost like magnets, we're getting this sort of nice smooth controlled motion here, which is a nice contrast to this sort of big plate that's just going clunking there. Really, boom, hitting hard. Maybe we can see it better if we do a F-check up close. Again, to sort of see our ideas. Again, I love this character because he's so light. We're able to just quickly have these little renders of F-checks happen right before our eyes. So there you can sort of start to see some contrast now. The weight of the upper body feels slightly different than the weight of these plates here. That again, that I consider, I'm trying to make them feel like magnets, so they're sort of holding everything together. And basically the thorax here is just sort of pivoting off the top. So moving right along, analyzing what leads what I can start doing now is, based on the stride positions, I can now start going in on the pelvis and start animating the pelvis and its function for balance and stuff on this character. And a nice thing to do is just see where the weight gets taken on the leg. And here the mid-stride, the leg is pretty much up. What I can do is just grabbing it in Z rotation, I can just offset it slightly on this side. Rotate Z, can set a key, clean that key up a little bit, maybe do 5.5 here. Enter. And now the opposite will be true for 25. I can just have it be positive 5.5. And if I flatten this tangency here, all the tangency here going in with this key. Again, now at 17, I should in the graph editor have something for free. Actually, maybe I'll make this a little bit more interesting. Maybe when I have the hips hit, I'll probably have them hit pretty hard. So let's do that. Let's hit these hips pretty hard. And maybe at 17, just to have pure balance, why don't I try throwing in a key and actually putting it at 0? Or maybe not. It's so close to 0, maybe there's not a point. But okay, let's just try putting it at 0. Sort of zero that out a little bit. See if we can hide our spacing. Again, bow that curve slightly. Break this handle here. Sort of hit hard. Maybe not too hard, but certainly harder than the recovery. Also what I could do, actually I'll wait till I put the other key in. But let's just copy this and paste it at 1. And paste it again at 33. You're noticing I'm basically just mirroring this thing. I'm building this cycle around its major point of change, which is the drop and the catch. And constantly trying to revert all these ideas back to a general philosophy that I've started with. I'm not going to try to have the legs do different things on different sides. I'm not going to have even the body do different things on different sides. Again, anything that's slightly different gives a nice feeling, But anything that's majorly different, even different timing, it really gives the illusion of like a limp, that sort of nature. So we don't want to do that. So let's again sort of adjust these better here. Go through here. Make sure we're really hiding these keys that we've dropped in here. And I really like the post-infinity and pre-infinity with you can view the curves. You can really see your spacing going in and out, and maybe have some fun with it. So now that we've done that, I said something a little bit about freeweighting the handles here. Let's see. I don't want to screw it up too much. I don't want to bend it too far past my 0 point, because it might start looking a little bit ugly. Just slightly, there's a bend on that. So I've kind of almost shark finned it here. And I might actually, as I keep scrubbing through this and feeling it out, eventually might spike those keys a little bit harder. Something I call shark finning my curve. I don't know why I call it that. It just reminds me of a shark fin. But basically, I'm really hitting the position quite hard. I'm hitting the extreme hard, and I'm really allowing for it to slow out so it can hold its shape. But essentially, it's hitting its shape quite hard. It feels a little more dynamic. So, boom. So here's this guy with his pelvis. This might be a good opportunity to do a quick F-check from the front view. We can sort of check our work, see how we're doing here. Let's go to pure front view, see how things are measuring up. Hopefully it's not a situation where we're running into any major mistakes or anything like that. And it's nice again too, because when it's even doing this little quick capture, you can sort of start seeing your ideas in a little bit in slow motion, just like scrubbing, and then boom, boom, boom. You can sort of see he's coming forward a little bit here. And to not have this sort of dead guy feel, we're going to obviously now start counter-animating the head and the neck to really show this character is balancing himself, can balance himself, is looking forward. Like at this point here, it's just so bizarre looking that there's no overlap to the upper body. It might have even been nice to really quickly, so it doesn't distract you, maybe turn off the arms and turn off the head and turn off the controls. And then what you can be left with is something to analyze, because you might have some ideas now and you might want to push some things and say, you know what, I still don't like that rocking motion. Or maybe you do like that rocking motion. Maybe that rocking motion is something you really want to push forward. When we start putting personality into this walk cycle, we'll hopefully have learned from just building sort of a neutral, pure walk cycle at this point. I sort of tell my students, never put the cart before the horse. And that's a big part of this lecture series that we're going to be developing here at the Gnomon Workshop, is we don't want to just jump into super hard stuff or super stylized stuff until we know what we're basing it off of. Basic mechanics and basic understanding of the F-curves and how your keys relate to each other in extremes are the most important things you can have in animation, next to good timing and spacing and contrast. So when we start to do things like acting, we understand the general mechanics of, oh yes, I need a contact pose. I'm forever telling my students that once that foot hits the ground, you have to have some relative straight shape. Really, really emphasize, so then when you do have change, bang, you can see it. It's right there. Big amount of change. So when the change happens, it goes right up through the body, so you can feel this character's alive. There's something happening here. And this is relatively successful right now. But what we haven't really gotten into is anything other than just forward rotations, rotating in X. The only thing that we've done from side to side is our pelvis. And I haven't taken the pelvis and done anything side to side because it would look totally wacky to start walking with like this. I don't even want to tell you what that refers to. Just something kind of weird looking. You can use your own imagination for that. Basically, there's certain controls I put certain limitations on, and others that I kind of like to explore a little bit more. So because this is sort of a point of axes in the middle, the lumbar 1, lumbar 2, I don't really know how appropriate it is to put a ton of rotation in Y on these. Because you'll see what happens is because everything's connected, it rotates there. But what I do think might be appropriate is if we go right to the thorax here, and just go to our stride position keys. And now we're going to be layering keys in our thorax. And let's do something that feels sort of comfortable. Again, splitting our channels, not pressing S, not keying on everything, not just throwing in stuff that's taking away all these sensitive spacing things that we've done all throughout our scene so far. Again, layering stuff, thinking about what leads what. And now, let's put a little bit of an upper body twist on this guy. Oops, just going to make sure I grab Y and only Y. And now what I've done is negative 9.224. So I'm just going to clear that out a little bit and just set it to negative 9. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it at 33, because 1 and 33 are the same. Paste it. And now I'm going to do positive 9. Enter. Go back in, check our spacing. Key select. What happened there? I didn't press S at the beginning, so let's do that again really quick. Sorry about that, folks. I got to make sure every channel when I'm working auto key is a keyable channel so the computer knows. And I didn't press S or select at the beginning, and I meant to keep channeling as I go, or keying this channel as I go here. Now let's get back to business. So really quickly, here we go. So now I have this sort of linear spacing, hitting hard, kunk, kunk, kunk. I don't think that's probably the way to go. It might be nice to kind of soften him up on each position. And if you really want to hold that extreme, you can do some fun things like drop a key a few frames afterwards, like let's say at 5, and let's say at 21. What I can now do is multi-select these two keys I've just kind of dropped in there and offset them by like 2. And now I've given myself a little bit more hang time, so he's kind of really favoring the side to side. But I constantly adjust walk cycles as I go, and basically I try to have some fun, and I encourage you to play with your work as you're working. Just explore those ideas. There's no real right or wrong way to do a walk cycle as far as the actual style of how the person moves, because everyone, as you know, has a distinctive walk. And what you're trying to do now is create some degree of a distinctive walk for this No-Man character by doing your own rotations, all that sort of thing. But what we're looking at really is a sensibility as to how we build this walk cycle. We build it from the ground up. We don't try to just key everything and kind of go all over the place and key the crap out of this thing. We are just slowly, basically, sculpting this walk cycle from side to side. And I'm not crazy about the way that side to side feels. So let's go back really quick and adjust that. It wasn't, you know, it was an idea. You got to try it and move along. Let's fix all this a little bit better there. Okay, I'm going to check all my spacing just to make sure everything's on the up and up. Always reverting back to the graph editor as I work. It's my best habit, I think, as a computer animator. I always want to know what's happening under the hood in my scene. It's super important to me. Take a look at what's happening in the thorax here. It's sort of a dangerous situation. What's going on there? Making sure I get these key points to be exact. Maybe just to make sure, I will copy this, paste this here, paste that there. Fantastic. Okay, so now it's time to start working on the head. Now that we've done some twist in the body, contrast between certain parts of how the body moves compared to this boom, boom, up and down. What we're trying to look for here is analyze certain parts of our walk that are working, so we'll know exactly what we can now do to the head and the arms and the neck as we start layering this even more. What we've got to look for is this sort of beautiful twist, this S shape we're starting to develop. It'd be nice to push the head even more so it rotates sort of along that axis, the twist, or maybe counteract the head even more. Maybe we want to twist it the other way. We just really want to feel our way through this. We probably want to have the opposite arm come forward here, while the other arm in the back, we're going in sort of back perspective here. And we probably want to do some interesting things with the hands. You sort of get an idea. We sort of want to develop this confident, just easygoing walk of this character before we start putting some personality into it. Well, maybe we want to put more of a twist on the feet, or certainly even the legs. But now let's start going through the parts of the body that we have not done yet, which are the arms, head and neck, details on the legs, and the fingers. So let's rock and roll here. Get things going with the head and start analyzing what are the best positions to really put the head in and when. And my feeling is always with our major home position, it's important on this stride to get a feeling in the head where the character's looking where he's going. He knows what's up. He's not just kind of dragging his heels and looking at the pavement or any of that sort of thing. He is specifically aware and ready. Now, we don't have inherent rotates on this character, which is not a big deal, but some models you work with, you can set it so the head works to world space, and basically you get a lot of stuff for free. You don't have to counter-animate the head. But seeing as this rig doesn't have that, we get the joy of animating, which is tons of fun, so it's not a big worry. And sometimes it doesn't feel quite right when you have inherent rotations on. Anyway, it is nice to kind of counter-animate. So what I'm trying to do here is set some degree of a neutral position with a slight bit of twist here. Just offset the head to the neck slightly, like this. So what I've done is I put a little bit of twist on the neck opposite to what I've done to the head to sort of get that feeling through the body that we're looking for, sort of up and confident. And I'm going to copy and paste this. Oh, first I'm going to clear out my numbers just to make sure my numbering convention is relatively manageable. It's just easier for me to do it. So 1.6, I'm going to just make this 1.5. I'll make this 2.5. That's negative 1.5, by the way. And I'll make rotate 6.5. So now I'm going to copy this, paste this on the head. Now I'm going to take the neck, oops. And some of you might be realizing as I'm doing this, well, he doesn't need to copy and paste because he's already set a key at 1. But what I'm trying to show you here is just certain philosophies and habits as you work. And I'm constantly trying to copy and paste so you guys don't forget watching that it's an important step in the process. So, key selected. -2, just round that off. I'll make this 1.5. And I'll make this -0.5. Great. Now, again, because I have that there, I can just key it there and do the opposites at frame 17. Positive. Make this negative. Make this positive. Now do the same thing with the head. Check our keys that we put in. Make this positive. Make this negative. Make this negative. Now, back to the graph editor. See what sort of change we want to put into this. Now what I think is nice for just the side to side is just maybe flat curves. Just kind of nice, casual, kind of working through the motion. But what I do think would be cool is to offset the up and down for the head. Because right now, if we look at what we have, the up and down doesn't completely go with the walk at this point. It's just sort of doing its own thing. So back and forth. That actually doesn't feel very opposite to me, so let's take a look. Have we done something wrong here? Let's make sure everything is good. Oh, should not have made that negative. Just so you guys know, you gotta be mindful. I made the mistake because I have performance anxiety here on camera. But not all of these are going to be mirrored. Rotate Y is obviously going to be mirrored. Rotate Z will be mirrored, but it's going through the x-axis here. It's not going to be mirrored. So let's put this at +2. Oops, sorry, 17. Let's put this at -2, matching 1 and 17. There we go. Now we're in the money. Sorry about that. Okay, rotate. Keeping it up. This looks cool. I'm going to flatten this. I'm going to flatten this on the neck. So there we go. Boom, boom, boom. So let's start making it interesting. I'm not going to do too much forward and back on the neck, or he's going to kind of look gangly and sort of strange. We're going to use the neck right now as sort of the magnets that sort of keep the weight of this mass up. So we're going to concentrate now more on the up and down, forward and back of rotation X once he's dropped. And also we have an opportunity to do the same thing on the side to side. Maybe push it just slightly more than what we have it from this sort of counter, boom, boom. So let's take a look here. Go into rotate X. Think about our up and down positions. And let's hit hard on this. Every time we go in, let's hit hard. And also, I think I might want to do is maybe some breakdowns on this position. So it's sort of more of a double bop. Let's go to View, Infinity, Curves, Pre, Cycle, Post, Cycle. And for now, what I'm going to try to do is just take a look at where I have my up and down positions on the head, which is 5 will be this sort of nice back position, and 17 will be gone in X because it's sort of the neutral position, but 13 is a high, so I'm probably going to have it go more low here, start feeling it out. And 5 might have it go slightly up because it's counteracting what's happening. The ground plane when the body drops. Boom. Okay, let's take a look at what's happened here. So I put a little bit of hang time in here, just feeling it out. I don't know for sure if this is the appropriate thing to do, but I have a suspicion that it might be the right way to go. Kind of hang him more when he's gunk like that, and just sort of have it really drop. What I could do is show the other extreme a little bit more and fix these curves. What I encourage you to do at home on your computers is just play around with it. Basically, just try to feel it out. Try to keep animation fun. And not too overwhelming. Try to think about your approach, because again, approach is everything. And just sort of feel out where we're at. Oh, I really delayed it. So, anyway, keep playing around with it. We're going to move on to the arms, but I'm quickly going to do a play blast and do some adjustments to this head as I feel it out. And maybe I'm going to offset the X a little bit more. But let's try doing a play blast really quick and tone this sucker down. So now that we've got this sort of head that we've been playing around with, it's a little bit too gobbledygook, or I don't know what the word is. He's a bit drunk. So just from analyzing it and playing around with some extremes, I've decided that I think we're going to tone down what we've been playing with in our Rotate Z. And the reason why I'm trying to push things here and just basically try to have some fun with this and play around is to show that there's really no limits to how you feel things out, but there's obviously things that are appropriate and some things that are inappropriate. And I kind of like the lean that we have here on the original Stride. And I don't want to favor anything on the down position here or the high position here. So I'm going to take out these extremes here. And what I'm going to do is use my old contact position extremes as my subtle extremes for the head. And I'm pretty sure that's remedied it. Playing with the Y, spiking it, hasn't really bothered me too much. And keeping it very, very simple. Excuse me, playing with the X, but now we're looking at the Y, keeping it very simple, just sort of back and forth, very meandering and casual. I suspect this is probably going to be more to our liking and what we want to do. But again, constantly feeling it out, not really stressing out if we make a mistake or we don't like something, because animation's all about feel. If I want to even tone this down a bit more, again, I can go to those extremes and play within the graph editor. Again, it's going to be personal taste as to what you want to do. If you want to tone everything down, again, of course, you can just scale everything, play around like this. But for now, I'm kind of happy with the way it is. But we'll see as we go. Maybe I'm going to want to tone it down some more. So let's get right onto the arms here. Thinking about positioning, how we want to do it. And again, I'm going to work off this home position, this sort of stride position. And I work on just the opposite arm here to the front leg going forward. Play around with the clavicle node here, or control. And I don't know if I specifically want any up and down just yet. I'm just sort of feeling it out. I'll probably end up blowing away the rotation in X and rotation in Z, because we're going to have those to do the up and down later. But right now what I'm trying to do is just set a casual positioning and really focus on things that are happening in Y, because this is where things are kind of coming forward and back. And we're going to overlap it. So what's going to happen in channels is Y at this point is going to be leading what's happening in X and in Z. X and Z are going to be directly affected by what's happening on the body. So we're going to get some degree of change like this to get a nice bit of overlap. But for now, we're going to start breaking down the arms just like we've done everything else, thinking about overlap, thinking about nice shapes. I'm going to set a key here, copy it, paste it. And some people like to do the same thing with their arms as they do with the legs, just sort of copy and paste it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I kind of feel it's nice to maybe get a general feeling that the arms are mirroring, but maybe just put a slight change and just try to eyeball, because it will feel a little less mechanical and probably just a bit more organic and more beautiful. So let's set a key here on the extreme. Again, asking the question of what leads what. How's this guy doing? How's he looking? How's the animation feel? On this drive position, do I even want to have the arms this far forward? I'm actually not convinced I do. So I'm constantly adjusting as I'm working. Reverting back to copying and pasting. making sure that I am mirroring everything. And now basically here at 17, I can just do the opposite. Move the arm back. Maybe turn it like this. Just sort of working on my posing and getting a feel for how it looks. Always checking, rotating. Doing animations, you want to make it entertaining, you want it to move beautifully. So posing in key positions are so important. Hitting nice extremes. Thinking about your extremes. Thinking about what is logical. Does it even make sense that I've even done this pose? And hopefully, as you see, the way that we've been approaching this walk cycle, every step so far makes overall sense based on the walk from the beginning. So let's set a key here on the shoulder, frame 1. Let's copy this and paste this, frame 33, excuse me. I'm going to do an opposite rotation here. And as you can see, it is a ton of work doing a walk cycle. And sometimes it's a bit thankless. But believe me when I tell you, as I was learning to animate, some of the greatest animators I've gotten a chance to learn from and work with, I've always encouraged the idea that if you can do a great walk cycle, you're really on your way, because there are so many crappy walk cycles out there on demo reels. I'm sure most studios are just even sick of looking at them. But to actually do a perfect cycle is an art in itself, and it really shows that you have an understanding of weight, balance, timing, and spacing, and follow through, and overlap, and basically progressive action and plumb line. So you are covering a ton in this particular lecture. And generally speaking, any sort of rig that I get the chance to do, I'll do some sort of cycle. And if I have the time and I have the patience, I'll certainly start doing a walk cycle just to really feel that rig out and to get a feel for who the character might be. Because a walk can dictate how much the character has certain attributes in his personality. So let's bend this elbow. I don't want to bring it all the way back. I'm just going to bring it slightly back here on the extreme. Key select here. I'll bring this elbow forward on this one here. Go to gimbal. And I'll bring it more forward here. Either way, I just want to get a casual feeling, no matter what I do with this character. Right now, I'm not trying to put too much personality into it. I'm just trying to get the meat and potatoes of a simple walk. We're going to, pretty soon, we're going to offset some things. That arm could go a little further back, but I'm not totally convinced it needs to. Maybe just there, something casual. I'm not super big on these big monkey swinging arms. It looks a bit wonky, I think, in a lot of walk cycles. It's important, obviously, to push things, as we were trying before, like with the head and the neck. Play around with some ideas, but sort of get back on track and think, is it logical and does it look beautiful? So here we go. So let's just finish off with using the wrist, or the hand control, whatever it's called in this particular character. And I'll do a rotation here. Do a bit of a rotation here. Maybe put a slight twist on the character here. And I'll set a key there on the hand. And I'm going to do the fingers in just a moment. You can go crazy with things like the fingers and the wrist. You can really make them break and overlap. I'm kind of not a huge fan of that. I think it looks a bit strange. I think it's important to do some degree of overlap. But for things like walks and runs, people generally don't break their wrists as much as some people animate them being broken. Well, breaking of joints, anyway. So let's just put a slight bit of drag in here for some degree of interest. Maybe turn it in a bit. Not too much drag. Let's just see if that looks kind of comfortable for our character. Okay, so let's now go in. And really quickly, we're just going to multi-select on these two keys. My select tool, select, select. Oops, turn my geometry off. Sorry. And really quickly, I'm just going to go flatten everything. Just like a very simple pendulum going back and forth. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Absolutely beautiful. Now again, this is an area where we can start putting in some breakdowns, make things hit a little harder, feel a little sharper. But for now, because we're just doing something that's not so playful or crazy right now, we're just building this neutral walk cycle. Let's leave that for later in this lecture and start playing around with snapping wrists and all that sort of thing. So, again, thinking about what leads what, I'm going to keep the clavicles roughly where they are. I'm going to offset the shoulders by 2 frames. Because I've been bending the elbow, maybe I'll do it by 2 frames. 4 frames, maybe. Now I'm doing this just basically to make a point and show you some things, but how you can offset things, think about what leads what. But it could be a case too where, because I am trying to do something neutral, do something casual, this might be way too extreme. But let's not fret or worry about it right now. Let's just sort of keep moving right along. Constantly feel out our work as we keep trying new things and new ideas. Now generally you get the opportunity to do this only once in a while. I truly don't feel it's a good idea to do a lot of offsets unless you're doing cycles. I don't think in acting, as you'll probably see from the other DVD, we do our first major acting pantomime scene. I generally don't do a lot of offsetting. In the other DVD, the fundamentals, I do lean on offsetting because it is a nice tool to use. But as an animator, what I've found, it's very specific time when you will be offsetting things. And you even get a chance when it's logical. So let's go pre-post cycle. Cycle. I'm certainly doing my best now to also kind of think of the questions as they might come to you in your head and just sort of throw them out there as I'm thinking about it. Because some people might look at this and go, well, yeah, you kind of have overlap in joints all the time, and when I lean an arm forward, yeah, I always do like things not happening at the same time, which of course is very true, but not necessarily the best situation to have as an animator. It's just you're always just Johnny Offset. You just sometimes it's nice just to kind of hit a nice pose and feel it out. So let's see. This is quite subtle. You can see a little bit of overlap there in the wrist and the elbow. Let's just see where we're at. Do a quick F check. And start analyzing our ideas here. Could be a case where we need to push it a little bit more. We need to loosen it up. Could be a case where it's feeling just alright. It's quite casual. Nothing too exciting there. Now again, some people like to copy and paste. At this point, I don't know if I'm ready to copy and paste because I'm not sure if I even like this yet. And I'm not even sure if I think copying and pasting is going to make this as interesting as possible. Maybe, again, I just want to eyeball it because it's more fun just to animate sometimes than to constantly be copying and pasting. You'll go crazy if that's all you end up doing. So let's maybe break up the fingers. Maybe I'm going to push the elbow a little bit more to kind of break it up. So let's quickly analyze how would we do that very quickly or as quick as possible. Because we like our spacing. And I do like the feeling on the way back. But I think I could maybe push it a little bit more on the way forward. So let's sort of analyze that. You can see it's not hitting its extreme either right until there's a change. So the elbow basically, boom, hits its extreme at frame number 5. We could even break it up a little bit, make it interesting, because that's where the down position is on the body. It might snap the elbow, so it's snap, boom, which will directly affect the wrist. And maybe the shoulders and clavicle don't have such a violent reaction because they're way further up on the thorax. This is sort of more dangling piece of information here. So let's try breaking this handle. Play this back again really quick. And let's see how this one feels now that I've kind of pushed it might feel a little bit more jarring, a little bit more violent, but it's worth looking at. And again, you can analyze your animation as you're doing a quick capture here in F-Check and see what you like. And maybe you like it, but maybe you want to look at some things in your F-Check and say, you know what, it might be nice to kind of have nicer extreme. Let's go to our extreme. Frame number 7 on the wrist. Maybe I want to kind of bring it up more here, have it feel more like it's breaking. Maybe some bent fingers, something like this. I'm going to draw this in really quick here. Maybe you want to have the thumb kind of half bent there and scrub down 2 frames. Really have that snap of the wrist. Maybe have the fingers start to elongate or something like that. And just sort of keep feeling it out. Have some drag there on the hands more. Anyway, it's a neat way to kind of really kind of check some ideas. And for those of you coming from 2D background like I do, it's a chance to draw again. So anyway, it's no big deal, but you kind of get the idea. And I usually just do it on 2s, just on the way back. Kind of hit the extreme. Maybe have the hand still dragging there. Coming back again, starting to do the break of the wrist. So maybe the wrist now at this point will be much more down, almost like the hand is there. Then 21, obviously coming forward. Let's draw it sort of in perspective there. Sorry for my crappy ass drawings here. Maybe bend the fingers back to sort of get the idea that's kind of a bit of a hook. Coming forward again, 2 frames. Maybe it's not quite as dragged. Maybe it does have some degree of life in it. It's not these noodly wrists. Let's see here, 27. Breaking again, dragging the fingers. Maybe the thumb is hidden here. 29. We're almost there, folks. And just playing around with your ideas. And then maybe this will be a bit more of a favor to the extreme. The thumb starting to come out again. But regardless, you can just sort of see, now I got this sort of dragging flag hand. Maybe that's not the way to go, but it lends itself, just if you want to do a little sketch, kind of feel it out, it's there for you to try. Maybe you want to make the fingers feel that heavy. Personally, I don't think it needs to be pushed that much, but you get the idea. Okay, so now, basically, welcome to the future. I went and redid the other arm. I toned down the arm that we started with a little bit, and put some overlap on the toes, and also put some little details in. I just started bouncing the balls inside of his body to make him feel like he's alive. So, in the spirit of moving right along, I would save this, if I was you, as just neutral walk. And we can see there's sort of good authority to that walk. Powerful. You can still go and tweak it, should you like, for your own taste. I kind of feel like he's a bit of just a robot, kind of heavy set guy, so I kind of feel like I'm pretty happy with where this is going for now. But let's start changing the personality of this walk, and let's look right now what we can do to kind of get going with that. And let's make more of a kind of happy-go-lucky, jovial sort of double balance or something like that walk. So what we can now do is we can take certain positions and basically give ourselves 2 low positions and an extra high. So what we're going to use now, where our home base originally was just sort of our neutral position, what we're going to use the home base for is our new high position. Yay! So I'm going to copy and paste this, frame 9, boink, and frame 25, boink. Going to bring this down. What you will notice here, what I'm not going to do, I'm going to break it up a little bit. I'm going to make the second bounce not quite as aggressive as the one where the legs hit the ground. Because I feel like it'll probably just be a little bit of overkill. So let's see how we're doing here. So there we go. A little bit of oink, oink, oink. Let's take a look really quick. That's the 2-second double bounce fix. But obviously what we have to do now is still now go and adjust some of the overlap. But what I want to show you is just how quickly now you can really go in and start stylizing your walk. I mean, even that in itself, by just putting the double bounce in there, it allows this character to kind of feel a little bit more loosened up, a little more free. So let's start going in that direction and loosen him up even more. You know, maybe we want to have bigger sway from side to side. So let's take a look at the thorax and maybe push this bad boy a little more side to side. And I can scale it, holding shift and scale. Scaling from 0, I'm able to kind of give him more swing. Let's see again. And it's kind of working from every angle. It's like, woo! Now, maybe this now will lend itself well to breaking up the arms, doing something a little bit different. Maybe change the head. Because there's a double bounce in the body, maybe it'd be appropriate, and I think it will be appropriate. Let's just put a double bounce in the head. So again, this will be our new high position. Let's maybe hit this a little bit harder. Kind of spike that bad boy. Maybe I'll just put in a at 9, put a rotate of 0 in there. And here at 25, I'll do the same thing. Rotate of 0. And at 13, I'll do something kind of interesting. You can go in the channel box here and sort of feel it out. But I'll put like another, maybe I won't do it quite as much as that. Where's that sweet spot? Let's do rotate of 5. And I'll do the same thing here at 29. Let's do rotate of 5. And maybe, just to try something, I'll soften that one and make this one hit hard. Let's see how we do with that. Just to get a feeling for how our little guy's going here. So this is a great opportunity to play. Take your file and just now really work it. Really try putting some personality in, trying to understand more about how you even got to this point in the walk. Again, always building off the whole techniques and steps that we've been doing this whole time. Just keep building, moving forward, building, building, building. So let's go in, quickly fix some of the arms, and let's get him to walk off screen. Woohoo! So let's now take a look at the feet on this character, and we can just easily multi-select, holding shift, go to our graph editor, press control. What we can do then is now play with our, straighten this up a little bit. I'm always tweaking my work because I don't want to be sloppy. So anyway, let's play with the up position that comes later on in the cycle. The body's up, the foot is sort of dragging because we have all this weight on the up. But what if we were to give it even more hang time than we have it from before? So he's almost kicking his feet out. Adjust this spacing. So get some sort of hang time. We can even make it feel a little bit more extreme if we wanted to. This might be a little bit goofy, but let's just at least try it. Break the handles here. And just slowly bring that curve out a little bit more. Do a quick kind of scrub, so keeping it up, boom, and he really kicks it out, conk. We're going to have to be mindful of the rotation though, because we're seeing that we're getting some penetration here in the ankle. So let's look at the cause of that problem. I suspect it had something to do with the ankle and the twist. So let's go to the actual rotation on this foot in Y. Let's see if we can put a key. Keeping the key here at 17 because we like what's happening at 17. Let's take a look. If we put in a breakdown at frame 9, we bring this up. We're pushing it in there, but what if pushing out there? Excuse me. What if we push it in a little bit? Still some penetration there. Let's try going now. Also the rotate. Let's see what'll happen if we wait and really delay that foot to really kind of have it snap and kick out on a snap. So we're dragging it down there. I think this is going to be a lot more fun. Let's take a look, do the same thing in the other side. I'm just going to eyeball it because that's what all the cool kids do. Animate, having fun. I don't want to copy and paste my life away. So now at the halfway mark, I will just now bring the twist out a little bit, bring it in. So when he does kick down, we're going to get that kind of shooting out feeling. So it's like a boom, like that. So let's bring the knee in and then out. We could actually even probably now, just because he's going to be a happy guy, we could probably push this even more. The rotation, let's try it even more. So he's super stoked, this guy. He's a really happy guy. I'm really quickly modifying our work as we go. No big deal. It's as easy as just kind of controlling your ideas and keeping track of what sort of appropriate keys should be changed and what controls in the character can be left alone. Let me just make sure I multi-select this. Go to the point of contact. Really sort of bring this out a little bit more. So when he's down, he's good. So he swings it in and kicks it down. So let's do the same thing in the other foot with what we did in Rotate X. Again, I'm constantly reverting back to the ideas and basically trying to keep a hold of my ideas and remember that I have to constantly mirror something because it won't feel right. Because we do a great job of balancing ourselves and mirroring ourselves as we walk. So let's see, maybe this will be a little bit goofy, but maybe this will be kind of fun. Kind of kicking out, boom, boom. Okay, let's do a really quick F check before we do the arms. And let's see what we've done. Let's get a more of an interesting angle here. These legs might feel a little bit poppy or something like that, but for now, again, we're just trying to have some fun with it, and I'm trying to encourage you guys just to explore and really just play with some of the keys you have. And you don't have to re-key stuff. You basically have some values in the graph editor with some pretty good spacing and some nice curves, and you can just change those values. You can just change the timing. That's kind of nice. That kind of feels kind of interesting. Boom, boom. It's like happy guy, kind of waits to kind of kick his foot out. I think you could feel a little bit more proud, though. So what I want to try to do now is just I'm going to grab both lumbars here, go to my graph editor, get rid of my left leg, sorry, Johnny multi-select here. Here we go. Here we are. Check my rotations. And I'm going to now set this guy to be a little bit more proud. And I'm only doing it on the frame 1 though, because I really want to kind of set a plumb line or an overall feeling for the weight. You can see now what I've done is I've sort of pushed his chest up by using his abs, and I haven't even gotten to the thorax yet, because maybe I'm going to offset the thorax more. Because I have this nice up and down happening in the thorax already. I don't know if you guys remember that. But what we did was we put a nice snap in the thorax. Well, instead of having to change this, I go to the idea of what leads what, and I went to a node underneath it, which brings it back. Now, of course, I can still go in even deeper and grab all of these keys here and rotate them even further back. And this could work. I kind of get the feeling, though, it might be a little bit too pushed. So let's just sort of not get ahead of ourselves. Take a look at that. Now, I probably want to investigate with the head, though. Maybe I want to counter... I mean, he's pretty far back with his head, so maybe we want to counter animate just slightly the head node, so his head isn't totally going back, so he has like a weird neck or something. He's proud, but he's not looking in the sky. Let's maybe see here. We could push, if we wanted to, some of the down positions on this head. So he's up. So the down position of the body, the up position on the head. And also, it doesn't make a lot of sense to not spike this one as well, certainly because this is more of a, you can see it's a greater value of a bounce. If anything, it would make more sense to soften this one up. But let's just, for the argument's sake, try to just break up a little bit. Let's do this one ever so slightly. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to multi-select these just to make sure I'm doing both at the same time here. I'm going to be holding Shift, and I'm now just going to grab them. So I know I'm doing the same value on both sides. And also what I'm probably going to do here is try to give myself just a little bit more hang time so it's not hitting so hard. Let's see how we're doing here with this. And also, if I wanted to, of course I could have him looking around more side to side. It might be kind of nice here in 17 if he's not sort of caught up looking away like that. If maybe he's... Because I twisted the whole body down there, I kind of lost his range there. So if I was able to scale this, he's basically, now you can see, looking still straight ahead. So although there's this nice contrast, the body sort of swinging itself, he's able to still look ahead. So last thing we're going to do, let's just do the elbows and the wrists really quickly, moving right along. And let's try to just eyeball this, sort of break it up nicely. So I might even delay it slightly. Change my timing here. See what happens. So it's really a lot more hang time for this. See how we're doing here. So he kicks up and he kind of snaps into his back position. Maybe we'll give, so there's the brake. Maybe I'll push the brake even more. So he just really, he fires this arm up here. But by just basically playing with this one arm and elbow and thinking of what leads what, I'm actually kind of happy with the clavicle and shoulder. It's probably not a case where I have to really screw around with that too much, and I can still just change the feeling based on certain positions of the elbow. So basically I'm waiting and then snap. So it's waiting and boom. I think we're in the money here. And let's just do something slightly different with this elbow. I'm only going to delay it by 2 frames. Maybe not bring it up quite as much. Maybe I'll just scale them away from each other slightly. So I've basically broken it up a little bit. So from side to side, hopefully it's the case where there's some contrast slightly in the arms. So we're not 100% mirroring each other. We've delayed one arm just a little bit more than the other, just to kind of give a little bit more of a jovial feel. The guy's not super in control, so he's maybe not going to mirror himself quite exactly. He's mirroring himself in the general disposition and the gesture, but he's just a little bit more relaxed in that. So one of his arms is even maybe just a little bit more casual than the other. So let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, you can feel it. So it'd be nice to kind of even now, let's snap the wrists really quick. And maybe let's really try to push what's happening here. So I can go in the graph editor. I'm going to push the rotation on the wrist. I don't have tons of opportunity here because there's limitations of the rig. I have to be pretty mindful about just how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to drop a key in there and pull it back. Basically do the same thing here, but I'll probably just borrow one of these keys, push it even more. It's so subtle though, it's almost kind of not worth doing, as I'm realizing. You may play with the fingers, but boom, comes up. And here, basically what I'm going to do here, just to control it, I'm just going to flatten it. So 7 and 23. Now I can just basically, here's the extreme, hide this key here, which is 0. Set a 0 key in the middle just to make my life easier. It's so close to being 0, might as well put my auto key back on. There we are. Now, hide this key really quick. Hide this key really quick. Some nice hang time there. And play with one of the wrists. And we're pretty good to go, I think. So now, let's get this character moving off screen. The technique I'm just about to show you, you can use the same technique for any sort of walk. Turn the controls off and get a look at him. Let's sort of pick a camera angle that we might like to sort of do this with. We're going to drop the camera a little bit low. Maybe here. I kind of like the angle here. Let's go to quickly do panels, perspective 1. Oh, I think I already chose a camera. I'm just that fast. I'm going to lock this camera off in the outliner. Oh, I've got my outliner already open. Perspective 1, and give it a name. I'm going to call it Shot Cam. Enter. I'm going to lock it off. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of have this guy, who's super happy-go-lucky guy, kind of walk right by us. But just to make things a little bit more interesting than just having it walk on the Z channel, let's do Z and X on the grid. Let's go to top view. Here's our character. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the main transform of this character, and just underneath it we're going to go transform offset. In here should be already started at 0, but it's not. I'm going to go to rotate Y. I'm going to put 45 degrees. I'm going to set that, and I'm going to key that. Not in perspective. So there he is, walking on the spot. Chunk, chunk, chunk. This is what's so cool about the animating the computer. You can really see your animation. Every angle. It's the best. Okay, anyway, so let's get back to it. Frame 1. I'm going to set a key here and here. Go key select. I'm going to go to the graph editor. Grab these two keys. Boom. Boom. I'm going to move the character back in space to the back of the grid. So because he was at point of origin of 0, and I set it to 45-degree angle, which obviously is in between this square here, I know that 45-degree angle, he's going right through the axes of the grid. So, boom, he's going to go right through there. So let's check our composition of our shot cam. Yeah, and that'll be fine, coming right towards us. So now, let's start getting him to move forward. So I've just done a play blast here from a side angle. To see, he's walking at a 45-degree angle from our side view. And how are we going to get him to move forward without having his feet slipping? And we can see that we've done a pretty nice job. The feet aren't really penetrating or anything like that. And you'll find it in your scenes usually some sort of texture to the ground. So it's kind of nice to have some sort of unconveyor belt perfect spacing in the up and down. Once you kind of break down your scenes, if he's walking over some rocks, you'll see that you're going to want to kind of roll the foot with the floor, depending on it. But right now, it's fine that the foot's actually level to the ground because it's perfect ground space here. So let's not worry about that right now. And just want to make sure we can go to perspective view. So again, I'm going to grab the main transform offset here. Under the transform offset. That's what I said. And what I want to do here is I want to set a key at 33. I'll translate X and Z. Key select. Key select. And the idea being, like right now, they're the same value. But again, I can multi-select them and get in really close to the foot here and see what happens on frame 3. You can see right now foot's there and the foot's right back there. What we want to do is we want to have this point of contact be our base, our sort of homing position. So we can go to side view. Really getting close. This foot. And if I just move it slightly here, I can use this line here. I'm going to get in really, really close. Really close. I can now use this line here as sort of a graph or what have you, just like a line to dictate when I go to frame 33, move this forward, what's happening now at frame 3. So now technically, we shouldn't get a ton of slipping. As you can see there, it is happening, so we got to keep subtly adjusting this. It's a bit of the pain in the butt, but you want to getting in as close as you can, adjusting only this one curve. We're going to oscillate, cycle with offset. So there, it's not really moving. You can see there's some nice little bit of texture there. Keep getting in there closer and closer and closer. But you get the basic idea. The thing is, the audience won't really notice anything that's very minute. They will notice slipping, so you want to try to avoid that, obviously, at all costs. You can see here, still rolling a little bit. So I'm going to keep going in there. And just adjust it, adjust it, adjust it. And I encourage you guys to look at this Maya file that comes with this lecture. And take a look at how this was done. And hopefully you'll agree that it was done quite simply. We didn't really overcomplicate our walk. Our walk doesn't have a lot of limping to it. And if we go to our shot camera, hopefully we will find, and big on the hopefully, I'm going to select all of this character here. Turn off the geometry. We are going to cycle. Cycle, and I'm going to cycle the transform. Offset. I'm going to cycle that with offset. Let's quickly do a play blast to see where we're at. And that should be that. And here's our basic completed file. I changed the camera a little bit, as you'll probably notice. So I was poking around trying to get a nice angle. And that's him walking forward. So I hope you've enjoyed this lecture, and hope you have fun trying to play with some walk cycles and tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. Could be a case where I tweak this one a little bit more. When you open the file, you might notice it's slightly different. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. Looks okay to me for now. We basically got the point across. So thanks a lot.
DVDs by Dave Picciuto.